Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to discuss 6+1 tip new photographers must know about photography. This is going to be geared toward photographers that are trying to make money, but that doesn't mean if you're just a hobbyist or taking pictures for fun, you can't watch it. We'd love for you to stay for the whole thing. I'm just letting you up front that it's going to be geared toward more of them, but hang around and watch. You never know. Your life can change on a split second sometimes on something you hear. So let's get started. You saw in the very beginning of the video where it said knowledge is power. That has a lot to do with photography. That's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to apply that. So I thought that was kind of cool to have at the beginning, because we'll get back to that by the end of the video. But the first thing that a new photographer needs to know, now this can be, you could be brand new, you just started a studio, or you've been shooting for a year or two, but you're a little bit familiar with things. But I'm still going to answer this first question. Hopefully you've got this already figured out, but it is the number one question always. So I'm going to cover it just in case. And that is, of course, what camera should you buy? And I know we've all heard this over and over and over, but it's always the question everybody has at least once in their career. I'm sure I had the question back in 1983. I'm sure I was asking people that I respected, what camera should I buy, without really understanding what all that involves. So what that involves, you got brands, Canon, Nikon, Sony, you got full frame, micro four thirds, you got APS-C sensors, you got all these serve a different purpose. So if you're starting a photography studio, you may be interested in like a Canon R6 Mark II or a Sony A1, something like that, or maybe even medium format if you don't ever plan on leaving the studio with it. So you kind of have to know what your line of work is going to be, or what your line of work, what your goal is going to be, because that will change the equipment that you're going to need. So if you're doing sports, you may need like a Canon R1. If you're traveling and you're doing a lot of traveling and you don't really need super huge images blown up, you might want to go with micro four thirds for the size. Micro four thirds offers a lot of things that full frame doesn't, but again, full frame is the highest quality except for the medium format. But most people aren't going to run around carrying medium format cameras nowadays to shoot weddings. We used to back in the day, but times have changed. So you need to know your line of work that you're going into. And once you do that, let's say you're going to open a photography studio and shoot family portraits and weddings. So I would say you'd probably go with a Canon R6 Mark II, have a Canon R6 as a backup, or maybe even the Sony A1 as your main camera, or you can go older. I'm big into used equipment, as you guys know. KEH is one of our affiliates, and I've been buying cameras from them since 1983. I always loved to buy something cheaper, because even my Canon R6, when it first came out, it was around $2,500. I didn't buy it right when it first came out, but when I bought it, they were about $2,000 to $2,200 everywhere. But I had found on Canon refurbished, they had one for $1,699. So I was able to get my Canon R6 body for just right at $1,700. So that's money saved, and that's more profit that you can put in your pocket. So look for deals. If you don't have to have the absolute latest and greatest, which I really don't think you do, find a good camera. Maybe your number one camera. Yeah, if you want to be more comfortable shooting weddings, buy a brand new one. Buy an R6 Mark II, make that your main camera at weddings, and then from there, buy used. And your lenses are going to go along with this. So if you're doing sports, you're going to need longer lenses. You might need you're going to need more than a 70 to 200. You're going to need beyond, 300 or 400 millimeter, depending on what sport you're photographing. But if you're shooting portraits in a studio, an 85 millimeter is great, a 24 to 70, a 24 to 105. So not only are your camera choices going to change, but it's going to change your lens choices. And then you've got brands. You've got, Canon, Sony, Nikon, Fuji, Lumix. So you have to figure out which brand of cameras you're going to get into. Now, if you go with Fuji, you're going to be either medium format or APS-C. I don't think Fuji has any full frame cameras. They go from crop APS-Cs to medium format. Now, Nikon, Sony, and Canon, they'll all have full frame and APS-C cameras. And then Lumix and Olympus, they're going to be micro four thirds for the most part. So this is stuff you're going to need to know. You may have to borrow some cameras. You can rent cameras and try them out. I forget the name of the site, but you can Google camera rentals, and there's some places that come up. You can try them out, because not only your cameras and lenses and your brands, but you're going to need to be real familiar with the camera's menu. I've shot Canon for over 40 years, so I'm pretty familiar with their menu. We've been getting a lot into Lumix lately, for about 1.5 years. And the menus are so deep, I still learn stuff in the menu. So whatever camera system you buy, whatever brand, new or used, whatever purpose you're gonna shoot, you've got to know your camera inside and out. You've got to know that menu. You can't be involved in the middle of a shoot and have to fumble around going, oh, where's this at? My menu, where's this at? You've got to know this stuff. Now, of course, you're not gonna do this overnight. This will come with time, but this is stuff you need to be prepared to learn. New and used, camera brand, camera purpose, camera lenses. Can you use third-party lenses? Now there's another thing, because if I know the new Canon R series cameras, the only third-party brand that will really work is they're letting you on the APS-C only camera is Sigma. Other than that, you either have to use the old Canon EF with adapters, or you have to buy the fairly expensive RF lenses. So there's a lot to look at when you're going down that road. And again, just in case, my email's down at the bottom, or you can drop a note down at the bottom, and me or there's a lot of guys in the channel here that can help you out with those decisions. So just let us know and we'll help you out. We'll move on to number 2. Understand lighting. Lighting is very, very important. It's probably more important than the camera that you choose, because no matter how good your camera is, if your lighting isn't good, you're not going to be successful. So you're going to need to learn available light. You're going to need to learn studio lights. You need to learn how to use a flash, bounce the flash. If you're doing weddings, you're going to need to know how to work your camera. If you're using some on top of your camera for run and gun situations at wedding receptions, how to use off-camera flash, after the wedding is over to get the full wedding party and that sort of stuff. Lighting is a huge part, and the best way to learn that is just practice and practice and practice. So one day it will click. I know there's certain things back in my career. I remember when I was younger, I'm like, why can I not figure this out? Why can I figure this out? But once you stay at it long enough, all of a sudden you wake up one morning and I got it. It just kind of clicks, and all of a sudden you've got that, and now you can move on to something else you don't understand. So photography is a big learning process. And if you ever run into anybody that says they know everything, run from them, because nobody knows everything. There are people that know more than others, but nobody knows everything. Then you've got lighting brands. You can go with your name brands. If you go with Canon or Nikon, they have equipment, but I find it more economical to go with brands like Godox, Newer, Westcott, those brands, because it's much cheaper and they're very reliable. I use mostly Godox for everything, from my speed lights on my camera all the way to my off-camera flashes, my 8200, to my studio lights, which are then the MS 300. So, but find a brand that you like, and make sure everything's compatible. So if I'm using like my Godox speed light, it's also compatible with my off-camera flashes and strobes. So, and then you will have like adapters, like there's an X3 adapter on here that I can control the off-camera lights with. So this is all stuff you're gonna need to research. And we have videos on how to do this. You can dig back through and find some. Maybe you can find it in the search bar up top. And not only our channel, but there are a lot of good channels out there that will teach you exactly what you need to know how to do. And also with your lighting comes your color balance. So you've got to understand, is your color balance right? Can you adjust it? Can you adjust it after the photo shoot? And we'll get to all that in just a few minutes. That falls under a different category. But you practice and practice and practice with your lighting. That's about the only way to really learn. As far as I know, practice and practice. I know some people can sit down and read a book and learn how to do it. I'm not one of those people. I have to be hands-on. And most of the people I know doing photography are that way. You need to hands-on, sit down and practice until you get it right. And there's no easy way to do it. There's no overnight solution. You just have to do it until you get good at it. So, but if you are just starting out, be sure to never get into over your head. Never, if you're not that comfortable photographing weddings, never book a huge wedding as if you are the #1 photographer and you're not comfortable with doing the wedding. If you don't have all the equipment, never do that, because that's a good way to get into a lawsuit. That's a video for another day. But yes, definitely learn your lighting, practice, practice. You can check our channel, other channels. There's a lot of great channels on YouTube that will teach you how to do lighting. Number 3, learn to edit. I like Photoshop. I use Photoshop. I use Luminar. I use Portrait Pro. There's also other great programs like DxO. There's a lot of great programs out there. But just never, when you're doing weddings, never show images to clients that aren't edited and ready to go. You may be in a hurry trying to get something, you end up cropping something wrong. You need to fix that in post before the client sees it. Don't let any of your work out until it's ready to be seen, because that's your reputation. And if you lose your reputation, you're pretty much finding something else to do. So keep it good, keep it edited. And editing is also something you're gonna have to learn how to do if you don't already know how to do it. A lot of people think photography, that's easy. You just push the button and take some pictures, but there's a lot goes into this. So definitely learn to edit your images before you let them out for anyone to see, because that is your reputation. Again, our channel or other channels, I haven't done a whole lot of videos on how to edit. We're planning on it in the next few months, but I don't have a whole lot of those yet. But there are, again, good YouTube channels out there that will teach you how to edit. Stay on top of your editing and make sure nothing gets to a customer that isn't perfect. Number 4, there's a crazy trend lately that everybody wants to shoot at 2.8 or 1.8 or 1.2, however low your lens goes. That's where you need to shoot. That's what the thinking is. Like these pictures right here, they're all blurry. Sometimes you need to see where you're at. And say again, if you're photographing a wedding and you've got 3 rows of people, say a family, you can't shoot at 1.8 because whatever you focus on, it's going to be in focus, but you got such a little depth of field that the people in the front row and the people in the last row won't be in focus if you focus on the people in the middle row. If you focus on the front row, your other 2 rows are going to be out of focus. So there you're going to need to raise your f-stop up to say maybe f8. And when you do that, you're going to need more light output from your off-camera flash. So make sure that not only you have off-camera lighting, but that it's strong enough. I use the AD200, but I've also got an adapter that will hold 2 AD200s. So when I put it in a softbox, it's actually 400 watts instead of just 200. So these are all things to consider. And again, don't try to learn all this overnight or even in a week because it just comes with time and practice. But as far as shooting low, there is a place to shoot 2.8. Like shooting a senior portrait, shooting a model, and you're in an area that's just not that gorgeous. Yes, make sure she's in focus. Eyes to ears, especially eyes. Keep an eye on those eyes. Eyes are the most important thing in the picture. Make sure they're lit up. Make sure the sockets aren't in shadow. Make sure the eyes are shining, and make sure everything's in focus back to her ear, because you don't want her nose and her eyes in focus, then she's out of focus from here back. So you don't have to shoot that low. You can go to 4, 5, 6, 8, whatever you need to do, and it'll still look great. Now, number 5, this is a very important one, and you'll learn this down the road if you don't already know it, but you need to shoot in RAW. Jared Poland, he's the I Shoot Raw guy on YouTube, has a great channel. Definitely you need to shoot RAW. That falls under your editing, falls under the color balance that I learned earlier. If you're shooting RAW, what you're doing is you're saving all the data onto your card. Yes, it makes for a bigger file. It takes up more space than a JPEG. But a JPEG, when you shoot the picture, the camera is processing the image for you. So when you go to edit it later, you don't have near as much room to correct the image or work with the image than you would if you shot it in RAW. A lot of people shoot large RAW and JPEG so they can have both at the same time, and that's completely fine. If you do that, just make sure you've got large memory cards, because if you're shooting large RAW and large JPEG, some of these high megapixel cameras now will eat up a lot of room. So you just need to make sure you have plenty of memory cards. Definitely you want to shoot in RAW, and then when you open that up in Camera Raw in Photoshop, if you're not already familiar with the differences you will see, it is amazing. Again, I think we have a few videos on that, not too many yet, but we're going to be putting some of those images out in the next few months. We've done a lot of shooting, a lot of that sort of stuff, but in the next coming 3-6 months away, we're going to be doing more in the computer, how to edit, what programs to use, like Portrait Pro. I love Portrait Pro. I shoot a lot of models. Portrait Pro is a great program for that, and we will have videos on that. But for now, even if you don't know how to use RAW, shoot in RAW, use your JPEGs, but keep all your RAW stored, because once you do learn how to edit RAW, you can then go back and edit your pictures. And some of this you guys have heard me say in previous videos before. I'm just trying to wrap it all together in one video right now so that new photographers know what they need to do. So, but I do know some of you guys that watch every day, and I so appreciate it. You've heard me say that many times over and over, but it's very, very important that you do that. Like I said, I'll say it one more time. For you guys that don't know how to edit RAW, go ahead and shoot in RAW and JPEG. Store those RAWs so that you have them. You can go back to them later and edit them, and you'll thank me for that later. Number 6, it is not always about buying gear. It's not always about having the latest and greatest, because the best thing you can have as a photographer is knowledge. If you have an understanding of how photography works, the lighting, the cameras, your f-stop, shutter speed, ISO, composition, all these things that you need to know are so much more important than any camera that you use. I could take a Canon 50D that's probably, I don't know, what are those cameras, 15, 16 years old? And if you give somebody a camera that's only been shooting for 6 months, they could take an R5 Mark II. If they don't know what they're doing, it doesn't matter what camera they have. So knowledge is power. That's what you saw when the video first came on. The more you understand, the better your pictures are gonna look. And only then is your gear gonna come into play as much. If I'm shooting with a Canon 50D, which is an older crop sensor Canon, and I have got everything in that camera figured out, I'm using it, I'm pushing it to its limits, I've got it figured out, that's when it's time to upgrade. that's when you can jump up to, say, a Canon R6 for the latest and greatest, because it's not that the newer cameras have better quality, and they kind of do in a way, but for the point of this, there's a lot more convenience. It's a lot easier to photograph a wedding with a Canon R6 than it was a Canon 50D. But if you don't have the knowledge to get to understanding what you need your camera to do and your flash to do and how to use your lighting and how to bounce it, it's not going to help you to have the best equipment in the world. That's why I was mentioning earlier, if you're shooting weddings or whatever, you're just starting out, if you want a brand new camera as your main camera, that's a great idea. You got the warranty, you don't have to worry about it. But your second and third backups, buy them used. You save a lot of money, and if you're doing this for money, it's a profit, you're going to need to save every dollar that you can so that you can eat next week. I've had a wonderful 40 plus years in photography, and it's been very good to me, and I've enjoyed it. It's amazing to be able to do something every day that you love, because then it's like never having a job. But if you're doing photography to make money, you need to save money at every turn that you can. And the thing about camera bodies, they are the fun. They're more fun to me to buy a cool new camera than a cool new lens, because you get all the cool new technologies in the camera body. But here's the deal. A camera body in 3 years is going to be worth 20% of what it was when you bought it, where your lenses are going to hold their value. They'll be worth 80% more than likely of what you paid for them. So camera bodies are always going to depreciate, and your lenses will hold their value better as long as, like Canon makes L lenses, those are your pro lenses, they're going to hold their value a lot more than a camera body will. That means that every time a brand new camera is announced, you don't have to run out and spend $7,000 on it. You can get great pictures with an EOS R, an EOS R6, even a crop sensor R7, or they have a great, the Canon R8 is a full frame camera. And I know I talk about Canon and Lumix, but it's because I'm a lot more familiar with Canon and Lumix than I am the Nikons and the Sonys and that sort of thing. So that's the only reason. I'm not saying that you have to buy in the Canon line. Nikon makes some great cameras. Sony makes some great cameras. They all make great cameras. And what will make them even greater is when it fits the exact purpose of what you need to do. Sports, wildlife, probably not. When you say wildlife, Nikon comes to mind for me then. Portraits, I'm more Canon, Sony. Lightweight, I'm thinking Micro Four Thirds Lumix. So like I said, each camera serves a different purpose, but the biggest purpose for you should be knowledge on how to work whatever camera it is you have. So if the best camera you can buy right now is, say, a Canon 70D, learn that camera inside and out, and your pictures will be beautiful. I guarantee it. It's a crop sensor, it's older, but if you have the knowledge to work that camera, your pictures will be amazing. We shot for years. We shot tons of weddings before we even ever went full frame and never had one complaint. So it's more on what you know than what your camera can do. So that are the 6 tips I wanted to give you guys. And here's the one tip that I wanted to add. Be humble. I said earlier, if you find any photographer that says, yeah, I know how to do everything in photography, they don't know how to do everything in photography, because I don't think anybody knows how to do everything in photography. There's just too much to it, and there's new stuff every day. So, and yes, I did say earlier, there's some people that know more. I've been doing it for over 40 years, and there's people who've been doing it longer than I have. But it's something you keep building on. You never reach the end and you go, okay, I'm done. I got photography all figured out. What's next? That don't happen. So you just keep learning, keep practicing, learn from your mistakes. Make sure if you're getting in photography for money, make sure you don't get into any event, sign a contract, or anything that you're not 100% comfortable with shooting, or that you don't think you have the right equipment to work. I didn't say the most expensive, newest equipment. I said the right equipment. So with that said, my email's down at the bottom. Y'all can leave comments below, and me and there's other guys on this channel that have a lot of knowledge. We'll be more than glad to help you out. That's one thing I love about our channel, is we have some great people in this community, and we'd love for you to be a part of it. I know I covered some subjects here and they were fairly involved, and I covered them fairly quickly. But I have this thing, I was helped as a new photographer when I started at 15. I had photographers that took time out of their schedule to help me and got me to where I made a career out of it. So that's kind of what I want to do. That's why you guys hear me talk a lot about helping new photographers, because I have this thing that I just want to help people get started into what I think is one of the best fields in the world. Being able to take pictures for a living is amazing. There's a lot of people doing some hard jobs out there. And being a photographer, you're getting to work in the air conditioning a lot. So, but learn your craft, learn it inside and out. Make sure you can do the events before you book them. and I am available for any questions that you have down below. Leave a comment. For helping you guys out, give us a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Thanks. You guys have a good day.